Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. If you spend any time, really any time, in the gaming landscape recently, especially if you're into challenging action RPGs, you've probably noticed the sheer number of Souls-like games out there. It's thriving, definitely, but it can feel a bit overwhelming, right? Like every other week, there's a new challenger stepping into the ring, promising that punishing difficulty, intricate world building, and lore so deep you practically need scuba gear. But today we're cutting through that noise. We're going to zero in on one that's really, truly captured our imagination. Wuchang, Fallen Feathers. This is an upcoming action RPG from a Chinese developer, Linzi Games, and it's being published by 505 Games. And listen, this isn't just another dark fantasy romp with, a cool aesthetic. The premise itself just grabs you. You play as Bai Wuchang. She's an amnesiac pirate warrior waking up in the absolute chaos of the late Ming Dynasty, and she's afflicted by this mysterious kind of grotesque disease called feathering, which, in this fascinating twist, gives her immense power, but it's also slowly, relentlessly transforming her into something, well, monstrous. So her quest, it isn't just about surviving, it's about finding a cure, yes, but also uncovering her lost memories and trying to understand the terrifying source of this plague that seems poised to just consume everything.
And that's exactly it. That's the core of what we want to explore today. We're going to really unpack how Wuchang Fallen Feathers isn't just, another entry in what's becoming a very familiar genre. It's about how it aims to profoundly distinguish itself. And it does this, I think, by masterfully weaving together these deep Chinese historical and mythological roots. With some genuinely innovative gameplay mechanics, the goal seems to be creating an experience that feels truly unique, moving way beyond just imitation to craft something with its own soul, its own, you could say, dark feathered heart.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about how actual real-world historical chaos became this perfect, almost ready-made backdrop for a dark fantasy setting. We'll get into the groundbreaking combat features that seem to be daring to defy some established genre norms. And then there's this progression system that quite literally has you absorbing the essence of your enemies as you defeat them. You're transformed by victory. Sounds incredibly ambitious, doesn't it? I'm really eager to see how it all fits together. So, okay, let's unpack this, right? So, to really get why Wuchang Fallen Feathers feels different, feels like more than just another Souls-like, we need to start at the beginning. It's foundation. We have to dive deep into the setting itself, because it's not just some generic ancient China, right? It's a very specific, very turbulent, and frankly deeply fascinating period in history. And the developers seem to have woven this history into the very fabric of the game. Its unique gameplay, its mechanics.
You've absolutely hit on a crucial point there. They chose the late Ming Dynasty. We're talking specifically about the period roughly 1368 to 1644 AD. And you have to picture this. The empire was, teetering. Really on the brink. Internally, you had widespread corruption, rampant corruption in the court, crippling financial instability made worse by inflation, and then devastating failed harvests leading to widespread famine. Just misery. Externally, the Ming were constantly fighting off threats, especially from the north with the rising Manchu forces, so this whole cauldron of crises, it boiled over into massive peasant rebellions across the land, led by figures like Li Zicheng and Zhang Xunzong, names that echo with brutality and chaos. They carved their own bloody paths through this collapsing empire. So this wasn't just like a slow decline, it was genuine societal collapse. You had the trifecta, plague, famine, and just constant war, and this grim historical reality, it provides this incredibly credible, almost immediate foundation for a dark fantasy Souls-like world. The developers didn't need to invent some abstract, fantastical reason for why the world is falling apart, why there's apocalyptic decay.
Right, the history itself was dark enough.
Exactly. The historical record itself offered this chilling blueprint for a dying world. It makes the fantastical elements, the feathering disease, the grotesque monsters, feel like organic extensions of a very real historical turmoil, rather than just, here's a random fantasy plague. This foundational chaos lets the narrative, the environmental decay, resonate with this real-world echo. It gives the game this unsettling authenticity.
That makes so much sense. Connecting the game's really grim atmosphere to actual historical events, it gives the fantasy a weight, a grounded feel. Okay, so let's narrow the focus even more. The specific region, the Land of Shu, modern-day Sichuan province. That's not just picking a spot on the map, is it? Feels like there's more to it.
Oh, it's far more than just a pin on a map. Shu has this truly unique history and culture. For a long time, it was distinct from China's Central Plains. It was home to these mysterious, ancient Bronze Age civilizations. You've probably heard of the Sanxingdui and Jinsha archaeological sites.
Vaguely, yeah. The masks, right?
The masks, exactly. If you look up images from those digs, they are just Astonishing. They found these totally unique artifacts, exaggerated bronze masks with these bulging, almost cylindrical eyes, monumental bronze trees that look like something out of a fantasy novel already, and evidence of really advanced metallurgy. All of this strongly suggests that the Shu civilizations developed their own unique beliefs, their own rituals, their own art. Often vastly different from contemporary dynasties like the Shang or Zhou, there's a sort of alien quality to them, a deep mystery that scholars are still trying to fully grasp. And what's really compelling here, what adds another layer of authenticity, is the developer. Linzi Games, they're actually based in Chengdu,
which is Sichuan's capital.
Right. So this isn't some superficial choice of inspiration picked from a book. It shows this deep personal connection to the source material. It's cultural storytelling at its best, really. They're using this global gaming platform to introduce their own region's distinct, maybe lesser-known heritage to the world. It's like, how games set in specific parts of Europe can feel more authentic when they're made by developers from there.
But they just know it better.
Exactly. They understand the nuances, the specific myths, the subtle textures of that cultural fabric.
That's a fantastic point about the local connection. So, okay, what does this all mean for the games world? Visually, thematically, how does this unique culture actually show up in Wuchang? Fallen Feathers. It sounds like it's going to look pretty distinct.
Oh, it inspires everything. From the game's unique art style and architecture, you might notice specific details like the curves of the rooftops, or maybe even overhear local dialects. Even the way the environment decays across different regions is influenced by Shu's distinct character. But where it really shines, where this deep cultural dive becomes terrifyingly tangible, is in the design of the bosses and creatures. Many of these terrifying enemies are drawn directly from Chinese legends, ancient myths, and those bizarre, super distinctive artifacts from Sanxingdui.
So like fighting those masks.
Imagine encountering a towering monster with those grotesque, bulging bronze eyes, or a creature whose limbs move like the branches of those sacred bronze trees they found. And the developers haven't just vaguely pulled from Chinese folklore either. They've specifically referenced ancient texts like the Shanghai Jing.
The classic of mountains and seas.
That's the one. It's a foundational text of Chinese mythology and geography, just brimming with descriptions of strange lands, spirits, fantastical creatures. Think about things like the nine-headed bird, or the Jian. That's a mythical bird with only one eye and one wing and has to pair up with another to fly.
Wow.
Right. That offers incredible inspiration for unique enemy designs, things that feel both alien and deeply rooted in genuine tradition. This ensures that every encounter, every monster shape you face, feels embedded in this rich, ancient tapestry, not just some generic fantasy beast you've seen 100 times.
That's incredible attention to detail.
Yeah.
Really bringing ancient history and myth to life in such a visceral way. I can already picture those creepy, bulging bronze eyes.
Yeah.
But okay, translating that ancient, maybe abstract folklore into something that feels truly menacing, something gameplay ready.
Yeah.
What's the trick there? How do they make an old myth scary now? Were there any specific adaptations that surprised you?
That's a great question, and it really highlights the developer's ingenuity. The trick, I think, is taking those core visual ideas, like the exaggerated features of the Sanxingdui masks or the weird forms described in the Shanghai Jing, and then injecting them with that visceral dynamic energy you need for a Souls-like enemy. It's about understanding the essence of the myth, its core weirdness or power, and then imagining its most terrifying, combat-ready form. So, for instance, those sacred bronze trees, maybe they inspire a boss that seems rooted but can suddenly lash out with metallic tendrils, or a creature whose attacks mimic the sort of rigid, sudden movements of ancient clockwork or mechanisms.
Okay.
And those unexpected forms from Sanxingdui, which are already pretty unsettling just as artifacts, they provide this fantastic launchpad for creating truly unique silhouettes and attack patterns that you just wouldn't see in a typical European-inspired fantasy game. It allows for this fresh visual language of horror, something players haven't necessarily become desensitized to yet.
That's fascinating. It really shows how specific cultural touchstones can actually redefine a genre's feel. Okay, let's shift gears slightly, from this deep historical canvas to the fictional lore they've built on top of it. The game apparently has this really compelling creation myth that sets the stage for everything.
It does indeed. The lore trailer lays out this complex, pretty evocative mythology. It starts, as many do, with emptiness, from which all creation emerges, including the feathered clan, these ancient, powerful, bird-like beings. Then comes this pivotal figure named Duyu. He's described as a god-touched feathered being emerging from some mystical gate beneath the heavens, and Duyu has this powerful relic, shaped like 5 chisels. He used it to guide his people to immense prosperity. But more than that, he taught them how to manipulate the fundamental laws of existence, to actually tamper with causality itself.
Tamper with causality. That sounds dangerous.
Extremely. The goal was eternal life, but this tampering, this attempt to defy the natural order, it led to a tragic, unexpected outcome. The feathering disease. It started spreading among his people, a corruption born directly from their own hubris, their own reach exceeding their grasp. So to prevent total disaster, Duyu urge them to follow heaven's will, transform into human form, escape their doomed fate. But you know how these stories go. Not everyone listened. A faction led by another figure, Bailing, got consumed by greed, by a desire for unchecked power. They rebelled. They performed dark rituals, started harvesting fallen feathered beings, openly defying natural laws. They chose the path of forbidden power over transformation and maybe humility. This defiance inevitably led to this climactic, sky-shattering war between Duyu and Bailing. During their big final battle, Duyu used his relic, those chisels, to strike Bailing. But the act itself, this immense power, it shattered causality. It literally tore the fabric of reality. Yeah. And it scattered the 5 mystical chisel shards across the world. So, to stop further chaos, maybe to atone, Duyu ultimately sacrificed himself, severed his own wings, gave up his divine powers, transformed into a human. His surviving clan followed him, transformed, sought refuge among humanity. And Duyu established the Shu Dynasty, where he was eventually venerated as a god. Temples were built, blood offerings were made, signifying both reverence and maybe this dark, lingering obligation. And the core message, the one embedded in this whole foundational myth, the one that's central to the game and your experience, it's simple but terrifying. All power comes at a price. This ancient conflict over causality, over forbidden power, the desire for eternal life, it lays the devastating groundwork for the game's current mess, for the feathering disease that now plagues the land, echoing those ancient sins.
Wow, that is some seriously deep lore. High stakes right from the creation myth, rooted in ancient mistakes. And that idea of causality being shattered, that's particularly intriguing for a game world. Makes you wonder how that actually manifests. So, okay, let's bring it back down. Connect all this rich history and mythology to our protagonist. What can you tell us about Bai Wuchang herself? How does her story weave through this complex, broken world?
Right, Bai Wuchang, she literally awakens into this chaotic, collapsing world. She's an amnesiac pirate warrior, and she's already suffering from the mysterious feathering disease. So her immediate journey is defined by these twin quests that really intertwine the personal with the apocalyptic. She has to ensure her own survival, first off, in a world that is actively trying to kill her, find a cure for her own affliction, and at the same time rediscover her lost memories and try to figure out the true, terrifying origin of this plague. It's a deeply personal story, but it's woven into these grander, world-ending events happening all around her. You're not just some detached hero, you're a victim trying to understand how you got tangled up in this cosmic catastrophe. And the feathering disease itself, it's more than just a plot device or a visual gimmick. It causes those infected to slowly lose their sanity, they grow feathers, they eventually transform into these grotesque, monstrous beings. The lore seems to indicate it's a pretty recent development in the game's timeline, implying that some significant, catastrophic stuff has just happened right before you wake up. The world is still reeling, and crucially, the disease isn't just story background, it's deeply integrated into the gameplay. It provides both peril and power. For example, a lot of the human inhabitants you meet, they might attack you on sight, simply because they fear catching the feathering from you.
Wow, so paranoia is rampant.
Exactly. Imagine the tension. Encounters where enemies aren't just trying to kill you, they're motivated by this primal fear of what you represent, what you might become. It makes every interaction fraught with tension, maybe even some moral ambiguity. But, and this is absolutely key, this very curse is also the source of Bai Wuchang's immense power. It grants her potent magical abilities, supernatural skills. This duality isn't just some philosophical tagline, it's baked into your very being as the player. Unlike other games where power-ups are just pure gains, Wuchang forces you to confront the cost. In every single battle. It actually amplifies the damage you receive as you grow stronger through its systems.
Really? So getting stronger makes you more vulnerable?
In a specific way, yes. It's this constant, visceral reminder that your immense power comes with a terrifying vulnerability. It's a true Faustian bargain built directly into the gameplay loop itself.
That's a really clever and truly unsettling way to weave the narrative right into player interactions and the core mechanics. Sounds like the feathering isn't just a debuff, it's this transformative force with huge trade-offs. But let's dig into her name for a second. Bai Wuchang. What does Bai Wuchang actually mean in this context? It sounds important?
Oh, it is profoundly significant. It acts almost like a subtle narrative compass for your journey. Her name is a direct reference to Heibai Wuchang. That translates roughly to Black and White Impermanence. These are two psychopomp deities in traditional Chinese folk religion, basically divine figures who escort the souls of the dead to the underworld, and they also act as judges of good and evil, working under the king of hell, Yanlo Wang. They embody the unpredictable nature of life and death, the impermanence of everything. Specifically, Bai Wuchang is the White Impermanence, often depicted as General Shibi, typically shown as tall, pale-skinned, and associated with rewarding those who've done good deeds, sometimes seen with a long tongue or a fan, and his hat often has an inscription like, "See me and prosper," or "All is at peace." In contrast, Heibai Wuchang is the Black Impermanence, General Fan Wuji, usually short, dark-skinned, associated with punishing the wicked. His hat might say, "Peace under heaven," or, chillingly, "You are also coming." Yeah, they're usually seen as inseparable, representing this balance. So, the game choosing to name the protagonist Bai Wuchang. It's a subtle but really profound narrative hint. By taking this name, she's symbolically positioned as someone who potentially delivers evil spirits to judgment in this world that's just teeming with suffering, corruption, lost souls. It implies a role that goes beyond just being a survivor. She might be an arbiter of fates. And this ties directly into how your choices as the player will likely influence the fates of NPCs, maybe even the world itself, potentially leading to those multiple endings they've mentioned. So you, playing as Bai Wuchang, you're not just hacking and slashing your way through, you're making decisions that carry real moral weight, perhaps even determining the ultimate fate of the people you meet and the direction the collapsing Shu dynasty takes. It's a fascinating layer to her identity. It hints at this narrative destiny that parallels the mythological figures she's named after. And just to really hammer it home, the game's pre-order bonuses. They include costume sets called White Spectre and Night Spectre.
References.
Unmistakable references to these two iconic deities. It's a beautifully integrated piece of cultural storytelling.
That's such a brilliant way to embed meaning right into the character's identity, and even hint at the player's potential impact on the whole story. It really suggests her journey is much more than just personal survival. It's about shaping destiny in this world full of suffering souls. Okay, so we've explored this rich tapestry of its world, its lore. Now let's pivot to what really seems to set Wuchang apart, its gameplay, especially the combat and progression. In a genre as crowded as Soulslikes, how does Wuchang Fallen Feathers truly innovate? How does it stand out?
It absolutely aims to innovate, yeah. And from what we've seen quite successfully in several areas, Wuchang's combat system is generally described as fluid, fast, and decisive. It seems to strike this careful balance.
Yeah.
It's somewhere between the slower, more deliberate pace of, say, classic Dark Souls and the really aggressive speed of Bloodborne. Maybe a more precise comparison is somewhere between Bloodborne's rapid-fire action and Sekiro's emphasis on precision and timing.
So aggressive but precise.
Exactly. The combat is designed to be highly aggressive. It encourages daring play, quick reflexes, rather than just constantly playing defense. A core element is this constant emphasis on managing distance and using precise timing for both your attacks and your defense. People who've played it describe it almost like a dance. You're positioning, circling enemies, making these sharp decisions about when to rush in for a flurry of hits or when to back off, create an opening. Every action feels like it has immediate consequences. This aggressive philosophy means the game really rewards players who take risks, who learn enemy patterns intimately.
That sounds demanding. A real test of reflexes and strategic thinking. What about the weapons? How does the weapon system feed into this dynamic combat?
This is one of its biggest departures from the genre norms, I think, and a real highlight of its innovation. Wuchang offers huge diversity. There are 5 core weapon types: axes, broadswords, dual swords, great swords, and spears. And within those types, there are 25 unique weapons planned, each offering distinct playstyles. So for instance, you've got colossal axes and great swords, slow but incredibly deadly. They can cleave through multiple enemies. Then you have dual swords, swift, mobile, allowing for rapid combos and quick dodges. Spears, naturally, offer excellent reach and crowd control. But the real innovation, where the strategic depth really comes in, is the dynamic swapping system. You can equip 2 weapons at once and seamlessly swap between them, even mid-combo.
Mid-combo swapping.
Yeah. To create these incredibly diverse attack patterns, maintain a fluid, uninterrupted combat flow. Imagine starting with a heavy great sword strike, then instantly swapping to dual swords for a rapid follow-up flurry, keeping the pressure right on your enemy. But here's what's truly groundbreaking, I think: how defensive abilities are handled. Unlike a lot of Soulslikes, where blocking or parrying is sort of a universal action, maybe tied to a shield or just a button press, in Wuchang, these defensive maneuvers, blocking, carrying, even kicks to break an enemy's guard, they are tied to specific weapon types.
Wow, okay, that is different.
It's a game changer. For example, if you're wielding a colossal great axe, you might trade swift dodges for this formidable, unyielding block that can absorb huge hits. But then, if you switch to a nimble set of dual swords, suddenly you're relying on rapid parries, pinpoint timing to deflect attacks, create openings. They might not offer a traditional block at all. Other weapons might have neither, forcing you into pure offense and demanding masterful dodging. This elevates your weapon choice beyond just, oh, I like how this one hits. It becomes a core strategic decision. Your chosen weapon doesn't just dictate your offensive style, it fundamentally defines your defensive playstyle too.
So you have to really master the defense that comes with your weapon.
Exactly. You can't just rely on a universal dodge roll or always having a shield available. It's this strategic dance where your very defense is dictated by the steel in your hands. It adds layers of tactical thought to every equip slot, every encounter. It's a really fresh approach, prevents players from just falling into one comfortable defensive habit.
That's a massive shift in strategic depth.
Yeah.
It genuinely makes your weapon choice incredibly impactful, forcing you to adapt your whole approach. Okay, what about magic? How does that fit into this aggressive combat philosophy? Magic often feels like a separate, sometimes slower thing in other games.
Yeah, and Wuchang handles magic with this refreshingly inclusive idea, magic for everyone. The game features over 40 magical abilities, and they're deeply inspired by Taoist rituals, traditional Chinese folklore, even elements from Chinese opera, which the developers interestingly describe as a vessel of storytelling. So you might see spells that conjure spirits, manipulate elements, or even perform illusions that feel drawn from ancient mystical practices. But crucially, unlike many Souls-likes where you have to pump points into intelligence or faith to be a decent magic user.
Where you have to commit to a build.
Exactly. Wuchang's magic doesn't require that specific stat allocation. This makes it accessible to all builds, even if you're focused primarily on melee combat. You don't have to sacrifice your physical prowess to sling powerful spells. Furthermore, magic, or feathering magic, as they call it, isn't fueled by a standard mana bar that just drains over time. Instead, it's powered by something called Skyborn Might. And this is a dynamic resource that is specifically replenished by performing perfect dodges and successful parries.
Oh, interesting. So you have to feel well to use magic.
Precisely. This innovative design forces you to engage aggressively and skillfully in melee combat to earn access to your spells. It seamlessly weaves magic into the core combat loop. You can't just stand back and spam fireballs. You have to earn your magical power through daring, precise melee engagement. It creates this really rewarding feedback loop where your offensive and defensive skill directly fuels your magical potential, encouraging a high-skilled, daring playstyle that truly integrates all parts of combat.
That's a fascinating way to stop players relying solely on magic from a distance. Truly makes it an extension of the melee fight. Okay, now, let's dive into what might be the game's most unique and maybe most challenging progression system. Let's unpack this madness thing. It sounds incredibly intense, almost like a curse within the curse.
It really is, and it seems absolutely central to the game's identity. The feathering disease, the one afflicting the protagonist, it's central to her growth through what they call the madness or inner demon system. So as your madness level, which they also call the mark of the inner demon, increases, and this happens either by killing human enemies or, more significantly, every time you die, it paradoxically unlocks powerful upgrades and abilities. You'll literally see this glowing red symbol appear on the back of your neck showing the corruption taking hold, and it increases your attack power.
Okay, power boost.
Yeah.
There's a catch.
Oh yeah. This power comes at a severe cost. It simultaneously makes you more vulnerable. It increases the damage you receive. It is a literal high-risk, high-reward system built into your character's core. It encourages bold, aggressive play, pushes you to the limits, but it punishes mistakes even more harshly. It's this constant visceral calculation, risk versus reward. But the most captivating, maybe the most terrifying aspect of this system, the inner demon. If Bai Wuchang dies when her madness level is high, or maybe after repeated deaths, this doppelganger of yourself, an inner demon, spawns right where you died.
A copy of you.
Not just a copy, a merciless mirror. It inherits your own strength. It wields the same weapons you had equipped when you died. It casts the same spells you possess. And to reclaim your lost currency, they call it Red Mercury, you must defeat this powerful doppelganger, your own shadow self.
Whoa. Okay, that's way more intense than just picking up a bloodstain.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a profound departure from that standard mechanic. The inner demon adds this deep psychological layer. It's a literal manifestation of your own failures, your own accumulated power turned against you. It transforms death from just a setback into this dynamic, meaningful consequence. Almost a karmic cycle where your past mistakes, your power grabs, literally come back to haunt you. You have to conquer a version of yourself. And while they do say you can reduce madness by killing certain specific humanoid enemies or using rare items, the system constantly pushes you to weigh that power against the vulnerability, it adds this unique, unparalleled layer of tension to every single death.
So death isn't just losing currency. It's potentially an existential battle against yourself.
Wow.
I can already imagine the sheer frustration, but also the incredible triumph of finally beating your own ghost. It really does sound like a literal comeuppance for every failure. But thinking about players who might find that too punishing, maybe just adds frustration. How do the developers balance that risk with the reward? Is there a clear way to manage a high madness level, or does it just keep stacking up relentlessly?
That's a fair concern, definitely, because difficulty spikes driven by complex systems can be a real turnoff for some players. But the design doesn't seem aimed at just making it purely unmanageable punishment. While madness can stack up, yeah, the game does provide ways to manage it. Beyond those rare items we mentioned, killing certain specific human enemies, particularly those who seem more corrupted, maybe more feathered themselves, can apparently provide a slight reduction in madness. So that creates this incentive to engage with particular enemy types, beyond just needing to kill them. Furthermore, the game's broader progression system, that big skill tree called the Impetus Repository, that also offers ways to mitigate the increased damage you take from high madness. You can build defensively or find skills that help manage it. So it's presented as a balance. The power gain from high madness is significant, yes, but so is the vulnerability. It encourages players to adapt, to carefully consider their strategy. Maybe sometimes you do need to retreat, find some specific enemies to cleanse some madness before tackling a really tough boss. It's not meant to be just arbitrary punishment. It sounds more like a core strategic lever you have to learn to pull and push.
Okay, that clarifies it. Makes it sound more like a strategic choice you have to manage, rather than just unavoidable, ever-increasing pain.
Yeah.
So how does this fit into the bigger picture of character progression?
Yeah.
What other systems are there for building your character beyond this intense madness mechanic?
Right. Beyond the dynamic madness system, the game really centralizes character progression through this large, intricate skill tree. It's called the Impetus Repository, and people who've seen it have likened it to those extensive, sprawling skill trees you find in games like, say, Diablo or Path of Exile. It offers a really wide array of choices. Instead of traditional stat allocation, just putting points into strength, intelligence, endurance, etc. in Wuchang, you use skill points within this tree to enhance various attributes and unlock a whole range of powerful abilities.
So it's all in the tree.
Pretty much. Everything from getting more healing flasks, increasing your maximum spirit points, which fuel weapon abilities and magic, to acquiring passive damage bonuses for specific weapon types, or even unlocking entirely new combat maneuvers. It's all managed through this central hub. This design introduces significant strategic depth naturally. You have limited points, so it forces you to specialize, make meaningful choices about your build. Maybe you lean heavily into those big weapons, or agile dual wielding, or maybe a more magic-focused approach using that feathering magic. However, and this is a huge quality of life feature to encourage experimentation and adaptation, which is really a hallmark of good Souls-like design. The game allows players to respec, to completely reset their entire skill tree. And they can do it for free at the checkpoints. Those shrines are
Oh, free?
Yeah.
That is big.
It's huge. It means you can freely reconfigure your character. If you hit a wall against a tough boss, you can try a different build. If you find a cool new weapon, you can respec to take advantage of it. It offers immense flexibility without that grinding penalty or needing rare items you often find in other RPGs for respecs. It really empowers you, the player, to experiment and find what works best for your style or for a specific challenge.
That free respec is definitely a massive quality of life win. Lets players truly experiment without that fear of messing up their build permanently.
Okay.
What about equipment? Armor, customization, especially for those of us, for those of us who care deeply about fashion souls, the real endgame.
Yes, for equipment, Wuchang seems to deliver on both fronts, strategy and style. Armor sets consist of 5 individual pieces: head, chest, hands, legs, feet. Pretty standard. And each piece grants specific stats and resistances. Things like slash resistance, fire resistance, maybe immunity to certain status effects like poison or bleeding. This means your armor choice is genuinely strategic, not just cosmetic. Your resistances, which can be absolutely crucial in certain fights or areas, are primarily determined by the gear you're wearing. It encourages thoughtful loadout management, but for the fashion souls aficionados among us, you'll be very pleased. Wuchang embraces this wholeheartedly and intelligently. It features a robust transmogrification system, apparently available right from the start.
Oh, nice. Transmog.
Exactly. It lets you apply the appearance of one armor set while retaining the stats of another, better set you're actually wearing. This ensures you never have to make that painful choice between optimizing your build for a tough fight and looking exactly how you want your character to look. You can have the best stats for the job while still rocking that perfect, unique look you've put together. It's a very player-friendly approach, acknowledges that looking cool is a huge part of RPG enjoyment for many people.
That's a fantastic feature, balancing power and aesthetics perfectly, so you can look good while being powerful, no compromises needed. Okay, let's talk about one more groundbreaking progression feature, one that sounds like it truly sets this game apart and fundamentally changes how you feel about growing stronger.
Absolutely. This is arguably one of Wuchang's most unique and potentially most impactful innovations, the harvesting skills from fallen enemies system. So when you defeat enemies, and especially bosses, it's not just about getting currency, that red mercury, or gaining generic experience points. Bai Wuchang can literally learn and absorb their unique moves and abilities.
Wait, you learn their moves?
That's what they're saying. This fundamentally changes her character over time. She gradually transforms into this vessel of the defeated, accumulating their powers, making her stronger and more dangerous with each major victory. And this isn't just some neat little perk. It sounds like it fundamentally redefines what progression means in a Souls-like context. Instead of just accumulating stats or finding slightly better gear, you literally embody your victories. Every challenging foe you overcome doesn't just drop loot, they become a part of you. It adds this visceral layer to getting powerful that goes way beyond just skill points or traditional upgrades. The developers have even explicitly compared this feeling to being like a powerful character from, say, Dynasty Warriors, who grows stronger by consuming enemies, or maybe like a Wuxia hero, who actively steals powers from their rivals.
Right, not just a struggling adventurer getting incrementally stronger.
Exactly. Not just someone finding a slightly sharper sword. Imagine defeating some massive, grotesque boss, and then suddenly you have access to one of its unique, devastating attacks. Or maybe a defensive maneuver that was previously giving you nightmares. This profoundly alters the traditional reward loop in a Souls-like. It incentivizes exploring, fighting, challenging enemies, not just for currency, but for new, tangible tools and abilities. Things that expand your combat repertoire, allow for an increasingly diverse playstyle. It genuinely redefines the fantasy of power in this genre, I think, making every triumph feel like a literal transformation.
That is a total game changer for the reward loop. Adds a whole new layer of excitement, maybe even a little dread, to every kill, knowing you're absorbing your enemy's very essence. Okay, shifting focus slightly again. Let's talk about the world itself. How does Wuchang Fallen Feathers make its world design feel different, especially compared to those typical long-dead Souls-like landscapes we're often used to?
Yeah, it definitely offers a distinct vision for its world and for how you experience navigating it. While many Souls-like games present these landscapes that feel, well, long dead, right? Like they exist in this post-apocalyptic silence where the catastrophe happened ages ago, Wuchang's world is described as being more vibrant. Which sounds odd for a dark fantasy, but the idea is it feels like a place that has just experienced catastrophe. It's actively falling apart now.
So the decay is ongoing.
Exactly. It's a society actively collapsing. The feathering disease is still spreading, still warping people and places in real time as you play. So you'll find these striking contrasts. You might see traces of order, beauty, maybe bits of traditional Chinese life still clinging on in some areas. While other areas are completely consumed by the corruption, by the decay. Imagine walking through a once bustling market, now eerily silent, strewn with feathers and bodies. Or seeing classical architecture just crumbling under this new organic growth of diseased feathers. This creates this compelling contrast and a palpable sense of an ongoing crisis rather than a finished one. It keeps you constantly on edge. And the world itself is designed as this large, interconnected, semi-open environment.
So not quite open world, but not linear either.
Right. Think more along the lines of interconnected zones, maybe like Bloodborne or the later Dark Souls games, but potentially on a larger scale. It's apparently full of shortcuts, hidden paths, and features significant verticality, really encouraging deep exploration and dynamic movement through these sprawling regions. And you'll traverse incredibly diverse ecosystems, dense bamboo forests, ancient Taoist temples hidden in mist, treacherous snowy mountains, and those awe-inspiring ruins of Sanxingdui we talked about, now probably even more unsettling in their state of decay. Checkpoints function much like bonfires. They're called shrines or sha. You rest, upgrade, fast travel. Interestingly, there's even this tantalizing hint from some previews that these safe zones might not always be entirely safe.
Like you could get attacked while resting.
Possibly. Maybe boss intrusions or something similar. It adds to that persistent tension, ensures you're never truly fully comfortable.
That sounds like a really immersive and unsettling setting with that constant underlying threat. How does the narrative structure support this? And what kind of player agency can we expect? Does our journey, our choices actually matter beyond just killing the next boss?
Player choices seem paramount here, yeah. And they apparently ripple through the world and its characters, affecting more than just which ending cutscene you get. The game offers non-linear progression. You're not locked onto a single path. You can choose your journey, explore different regions first, maybe confront different bosses in varied orders. This influences the unfolding narrative. And the world is populated with numerous NPCs, fully voiced apparently, offering rich dialogues, branching side quests, even moments of humor amidst all the despair. Makes the world feel inhabited, alive, despite the decay. Some NPCs also act as merchants, of course. The significance of your decisions seems pretty clear too. Finding fragments of lore, historical records scattered around. That can subtly alter the storyline, deepen your understanding of the feathering, the ancient conflict. Moreover, choosing who to trust among the NPCs, maybe siding with one faction over another, that can lead to entirely different branching paths, and ultimately, those multiple endings they keep mentioning.
So high replayability, potentially.
Definitely seems designed for it. A personalized journey where your choices genuinely shape the ultimate fate of Bai Wuchang and the world around her. And adding to that historical intrigue, specific historical figures apparently show up as NPCs, maybe even bosses. You might encounter someone like Lu Qingzin, a loyal servant of the last Ming emperor, trying to maintain order, or the notorious rebel leader Zhang Xianzong, whose real-life brutality fits right into a dark fantasy setting. There's even speculation about Jesuit missionaries like Gabriel de Magalhães and Ludovico Buglio, who were historically forced to serve Zhang Xingzong. They might appear, blending that historical reality with the dark fantasy narrative, offering unique, perhaps outside perspectives. It sounds like a really rich tapestry of history, myth, and personal choice.
That blend of real history and fantasy is clearly a core pillar, really enriching the whole experience. What about the overall look and feel? The visual and auditory aesthetics? How does Wuchang manage to achieve a unique style, especially when so many Souls-likes lean into that familiar Gothic look?
Yeah, they've made a very conscious, very bold departure from that typical European dark fantasy aesthetic that does saturate the Souls-like genre. Wuchang features what's been described as a bright and colorful art style, which sounds counterintuitive, but it paradoxically seems to enhance the grim atmosphere by providing this stark contrast.
So bright colors make the horror pop more.
Exactly. Instead of just monochrome despair, you see these vibrant reds, deep blues, lush greens in the environments, the costumes, which then makes the encroaching decay, the grotesque feathering transformations, the blood feel even more shocking and impactful against that vivid backdrop. And this aesthetic isn't arbitrary. It draws deep inspiration from the unique history and geography of the Shu region, from traditional Chinese design, and even from vibrant folk traditions like Sichuan opera, especially its dramatic face-changing performances, and the Tidua, that spectacular ritual involving throwing molten iron to create fireworks.
Wow, face-changing opera and iron fireworks, that's specific.
Right, imagine fighting a boss whose movements mimic those fluid, transformative masks of Sichuan opera, or seeing environmental effects inspired by showers of molten iron sparks. It's pulling from very specific cultural touchstones. And as we discussed earlier, the boss and creature designs are directly influenced by those strange, amazing artifacts from Sanxingdui. Those bronze masks with their protruding, often disturbing eyes, those sacred bronze trees hinting at forgotten worship. Boss fights themselves are apparently meticulously designed. They don't just reflect the boss's combat abilities, but often their emotional state or the specific stage of their feathering transformation. And the environments themselves reinforce themes of madness, decay, or maybe corrupted beauty. Adds another layer to those already demanding encounters. And complementing this distinct visual style is the game's soundtrack. It's composed by a renowned Chinese artist, Zong Siki. He's celebrated for pioneering this unique Chinese electronic style of music. And the score for Wuchang apparently blends these grand ancient melodies drawing from traditional Chinese instruments, orchestral arrangements with the modern edge of electric guitar riffs and pulsating electronic rhythms.
Ancient meets modern, musically too.
Precisely. It creates this truly unique, immersive atmosphere that subtly influences your emotions from dread to triumph and aligns perfectly with the game's whole worldview of ancient power meeting modern corruption. It sounds like it's not just background music, it's an integral part of the game's identity. It's storytelling, a character in itself that deepens the whole experience.
It really sounds like an incredibly cohesive artistic vision across the board, truly leveraging its cultural roots in every aspect. Okay, so we've covered the lore, the characters, the gameplay, the world. Let's shift to the practical stuff. What do we know about its release? And what's the initial reception been like from people who've actually had a chance to play it?
Okay, practical details. Wuchang Fallen Feathers is officially set to release globally on July 24th, 2025. It's coming to multiple platforms: PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, available through both Steam and the Epic Games Store. A pretty significant detail for a lot of players. It's confirmed for day one availability on Xbox Game Pass.
Oh, Game Pass day one. That's big.
Yeah, it makes it immediately accessible to a huge audience who are already subscribers. For those looking to jump in with maybe a little extra, there are pre-order and deluxe edition bonuses, things like those costume sets we mentioned, the White Spectre and Night Spectre, some unique weapons with distinct properties, and skill upgrade items like Listening Red Mercury and Blood of Changhong to give you a bit of an early boost. And all of this visual fidelity we've been talking about, the detailed environments, the dynamic combat effects, it's all powered by Unreal Engine 5. Which contributes to that quite pretty, visually stunning look that reviewers have consistently pointed out.
Okay, and as for the critical reception, how's the game been received so far in previews and early hands-on? We know it's a crowded genre, so ambitious titles like this often get a mix of praise and critique. What stands out from those early impressions?
That's right. It's rare for any game, especially a Souls-like from a debut studio, to land without, hitting a few bumps. Early reviews and impressions point towards a generally favorable Metascore, though with some variation. PlayStation 5 seems to be averaging around 75, Xbox Series X is looking strong at 88, and PC is around 73. So solid, if maybe a bit varied across platforms. Reviewers have largely praised the game for its distinct charm and grit, often commending its accomplished high-octane action gameplay and its genuinely unique character progression systems, especially that madness mechanic and the skill harvesting.
So the core ideas are landing well.
It seems so. Many have specifically highlighted its unique Chinese cultural roots and those vibrant, contrasting visuals as a really refreshing change from the typical dark fantasy look, noting that it really stands out in what can be a pretty homogenous genre space.
Yeah.
However, it's also important to look at the criticisms because they offer valuable insights for potential players. Some reviewers did find the game overcomplicated, mentioning too many mechanics to juggle, particularly referencing that extensive Impetus Repository skill tree and the very nuanced madness system. For some, these systems, while innovative, felt maybe like a chore to understand or manage initially, a steep learning curve.
Yeah, ambition can sometimes lead to complexity.
Exactly. There are mentions of unpleasant difficulty spikes, especially early on, where players might feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of systems interacting, or just a sudden jump in enemy difficulty. Some seasoned Souls-like players also noted a sense of familiarity with certain core genre elements, leading to a few been-there-done-that moments, despite the innovations elsewhere. And a few reviews pointed out occasional sluggish animations or a slightly floaty feel to combat in specific scenarios, suggesting maybe some areas for further polish and refinement and responsiveness. But despite these critiques, there seems to be this general consensus that it's an incredibly ambitious effort for a debut studio. A real labor of love showing significant potential, maybe for future refinement and a sequel. It shows a clear vision, even if not every single element lands perfectly for every single player right out of the gate.
Okay, so considering both that high praise for its ambition, its cultural depth, and also the critiques about its complexity, what does this all mean for you, the player, who's thinking about diving into Wuchang Fallen Feathers next year?
I think Wuchang Fallen Feathers stands as this bold, genuinely exciting attempt to redefine the Souls-like genre. It doesn't throw out the core tenets people love: challenging combat, intricate level design, cryptic storytelling, but it enriches them. with this specific, deeply personal cultural identity and these genuinely innovative mechanics that force you to rethink how you approach power, progression, even consequence. It offers a fresh perspective. It prioritizes player experimentation from that dynamic weapon-based defense that changes how you have to guard yourself, to the high-risk, high-reward madness system that makes death a confrontation with yourself, and that unique ability to absorb enemy skills. If you're a Souls-like veteran, maybe yearning for something that breaks new ground not just in its setting, but in its fundamental approach to progression, to player consequence, even to how power feels to acquire, Wuchang offers this unique and compelling experience, one that truly tests your mastery and your adaptability. It feels like a game that asks you not just to play it, but to truly become it, shaped by its world and your choices within it. #outro.
What an incredible journey we've taken today, diving deep into the feathering-stricken lands of Shu and the really innovative mechanics of Wuchang, Fallen Feathers. It's so clear that Lindsay Games has poured its heart, its heritage, into this title, creating this unique blend of historical authenticity, deep mythological roots, and some genuinely bold gameplay innovations. We've seen how the chaos of the late Ming Dynasty, the mysterious history of the Land of Shu, provide this incredibly rich tapestry for a dark fantasy, and how Bai Wuchang's struggle, her transformation, defines not just her character, but the very world you inhabit, a world that feels like it's actively crumbling around you.
Indeed. And it all circles back, doesn't it, to that core theme we keep hitting. All power comes at a price. Wuchang constantly asks you to weigh that risk against the reward, not just in the fluid, aggressive dance of its combat, but in how you choose to shape your character through that high-stakes madness system, how you navigate a world teetering right on the brink of collapse. Your decisions, your acquired power, your very essence as a player character. They are reflections of these difficult, often terrifying choices. It feels like a game where every step forward is truly earned, and every gain comes with this deeper understanding of its potential cost.
So, as you prepare, maybe next year, to step into the tumultuous lands of Shu, to face these grotesque monsters born from ancient myths, and to contend with a literal inner demon that mirrors your own strength, your own failures, here's the thought we want to leave you with. In a world where even salvation comes with a cost, and your very essence is a reflection of your choices and challenges, what kind of legend will you forge? Will you succumb to the feathering? Or will you rise, transformed and terrifying, to claim your destiny? We really can't wait to find out.
Is this bloodshed really what you wanted? Fate is all set in stone. You can't change how it ends. What will it take to finally awaken you?